Deebo Samuel has requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers have granted him the ability to go find himself a trade. And, oh, yeah, Super Bowl 59, Eagles destroy the Kansas City Chiefs. The 2025 offseason starts right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers. See a bunch of you jumping into this live chat Super Bowl Sunday evening as the page turns now from the end of the 2024 season to the official start of the 2025 offseason. Welcome to all the new listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150, in bonus bets. And all you got to do is win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. All right, Croc, big game, Super Bowl 59, Niners not in it. We got to talk about that one and let us know in the chat. I don't know if you saw it yet, Croc, who was named MVP. I assume it's going to be Jalen Hurts. But I want to talk about all that with the Super Bowl. But let's be honest, the biggest news of the day is about the San Francisco 49ers, much bigger than Super Bowl 59. Deebo Samuel, he wants out again. It was only, 2 years ago we went through this with Deebo Samuel in the offseason requesting a trade. Ended up signing that 3-year contract. Not yet to the end of that contract. Deebo Samuel has once again, Croc, asked to be traded, and the 49ers said, go find one, Deebo Samuel. So that's where we are at as of February 9th, Sunday, post Super Bowl 59, and it wouldn't be a 49ers offseason, Croc, without someone requesting a trade. I thought it might be, it might end up going down the weird Brock Purdy path into the summer, but no, it's going to start with a trade request. This from Deebo Samuel now. What are your thoughts on Deebo? What does it mean for Deebo? What does it mean for the San Francisco 49ers? And should they grant him that request?
That was something you and I, we discussed, kind of briefly touched on it. And one of the biggest hiccups that we thought would kind of make it to where the 49ers wouldn't be able to move him or, trade him or cut him, especially pre-June 1st, was a $31 million dead cap penalty. And I guess the 49ers said, you know what, if you want out, we don't care about the dead cap. And I believe you can spread the dead cap over the course of 2 seasons. Correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So the dead money would stay the dead money. You owe it to them. And it's prorated bonus money, and that they did a little bit of a restructure with Deebo's contract, which is a little bit weird. We can talk about that because obviously that doesn't look great now if they weren't going to see the end of his contract. So I don't know what has changed because clearly the 49ers put this plan into place to potentially move away from Deebo Samuel when they gave Ayuk a big contract and drafted a first-round wide receiver in the same offseason. So this shouldn't be shocking to anybody that Deebo Samuel could potentially be moving on before the end of his contract this offseason in 2025. But yeah, so whatever the dead money would be, and the 49ers can decide whether or not they would rather have that dead money accelerate onto this year's salary cap. If they think their future salary caps, they need more space than they need in 2025, because they do have quite a bit of space to start the offseason. But they do love to roll over a lot of cap space, which helps them create that extra space to start each new season. So don't expect them to spend up to the end of the cap this offseason, because they want to have some space and roll that over into the next year. And that's kind of their plan, that they keep rolling over every single year. So would they rather accelerate it all to this year's cap and then have it clean and Deebo off the books to start next year? Or would they rather split that up between the 2 seasons? But if they were to do that via trade, the trade would have to happen after June 1st. But if you cut Deebo Samuel, you can give him the June 1st designation, even though you actually cut him now, and he can go find work elsewhere. And then that cap hit would be spread over 2 seasons. So that's why there's cap relief after June 1st.
Gotcha. Regardless, I think not shocking because of just the entire situation, but just, Deebo Samuel. This is a guy who it almost felt like the 49ers were looking to build around for the long haul. I did always think it was weird that immediately after drafting Deebo Samuel and having a solid rookie season, so we're going to turn around and we're going to draft a receiver in the first round named Brandon Ayuk. That always was a little odd to me because, like, well, do you not anticipate having to pay both of the guys at all? Or if you anticipate only paying one of those guys, is it not Deebo Samuel? Deebo Samuel goes off for 1,400 yards. They're like, you know what? We're going to have to pay this guy a lot of money. And I don't think they truly wanted to, which goes back to what is the 49ers plan. And a lot of times we're a little bit confused by that. But Deebo Samuel moving off the 49ers isn't something that we were, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not shocking at all. That's the least shocking thing. He plays well. 49er fan base, they were really adamant about getting this dude off of the field. I think it's unfortunate because this is a guy who, you know, I want to see the best version of Deebo Samuel. And it seems like, especially after that 1,400-yard season, we haven't quite seen that guy, whether it's just from a usage standpoint, how in shape he is, not doing certain things to continue to improve as a pure receiver on the field. Just a lot of things that I think got a little questionable. And Deebo Samuel is like, you know what? I see where this is headed, and I want out.
And for those that didn't see the report from Adam Schefter and might not know what we're talking about, the 49ers have granted Deebo Samuel and his agent, Tory Dandy, permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver, Samuel told ESPN. This comes after Samuel asked San Francisco to trade him during the players' exit meetings after the season. Quote from Deebo Samuel, quote, "It was a hard conversation to have with Kyle because of the relationship we have, but I have to do what's best. I'm more than thankful for the Niners giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, but now I think it's best that we find another team," end quote. That is Deebo Samuel's thoughts on the situation. And I heard Tim Kawakami today, Croc, say that a couple of things with Deebo. One, remember there was that, that I don't call it an outburst, but basically during the season, he was talking about how he needed to see the ball more. And clearly there was some unhappiness there. The 49ers potentially thought he was out of shape, potentially 20 pounds more than he should have been at some point, according to Tim Kawakami. I don't know
20 pounds. If I had to guess, he's coming in, you assume he's going to be about 220. So if he's anywhere 20 pounds north of that,
he's 240.
We're talking about 240 pounds, easily 240. If not,
extra wide back.
Ooh, and he didn't look like David Boston out there at 240.
240, he wasn't that. He's got some thickness, and you probably can't tell. Is he maybe 20 pounds over his drafted weight? Maybe. I don't know what. And Kawakami's like, I'm not going to put a number on it. So, and the other part was that Kawakami said he thought Deebo was maybe getting in front of the 49ers, asking him to take a straight pay cut. And so that tells me that Deebo and his agent think that there is value for him out there in the league more than what the 49ers would be giving him and asking him to take a pay cut from. So if that's the case, then that means the 49ers should be able to get something for Deebo Samuel. What is the value for Deebo Samuel? That starts to get a little bit more difficult, because the way I look at it, Croc, so this is what I think a team has to beat. A team has to beat what Deebo Samuel would get next offseason, what Deebo Samuel would get as a free agent next offseason and bring the 49ers back in a comp pick. A team has to beat that in trade and probably beat that enough that it would take away having Deebo for another year. Because obviously the 49ers take a cap hit trading Deebo Samuel, right? So they lose a player and have to pay to lose that player. So you've got to pay the 49ers for the right to not have Deebo Samuel at all next year. And on top of that, if they just let him play out and they kept Deebo, then he would probably earn them a comp pick the following offseason. Maybe that's a third, maybe it's a fourth or a fifth round pick. Now that pick would be a couple years in the road because of the timing of it, and they would get the draft pick now theoretically. So is that enough of a difference if it was a fifth in the future versus a fifth now? I don't know, but I can't see the 49ers just giving him up for nothing unless they were planning on cutting him anyway.
I don't know how another team is going to use him. I think it was a perfect situation for him and what he's become with the 49ers. And I think there were still productive years ahead of him. But if you're able to get out from underneath that money, I guess do it. But for him thinking that there's going to be this large market for him outside of the 49ers, I don't know, because again, I think he's a very specific player on his usage.
Yeah, absolutely. And which brings me to the next topic, Croc, which is I think there are some matches for Deebo Samuel, what this trade could potentially look like for the 49ers. And of course, Super Bowl 59, our takeaways there. The Philadelphia Eagles just completely thumped the Kansas City Chiefs. The final score does not tell that story. We'll get to that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new features can help you write job descriptions, then quickly get the job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip when you are going through LinkedIn Jobs and posting a job for free, by the way, add the job to your hashtag hiring frame, to your profile picture, to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Deebo Samuel, where are the fits for Deebo Samuel? Who's going to give up a draft pick for Deebo Samuel? I'm going to say it's a mid-round pick. 3rd to 5th round is my guess on what kind of draft pick compensation would come for Deebo Samuel. And I've already seen one name in the chat, which is super interesting. Not Myles Garrett, even though that is one of the names. What about Tyreek Hill? Do you remember the best game? Do you remember the one game this year where it was like, oh, there's vintage Deebo? Where'd that come from? Do you remember the 49ers who they were playing that day?
Would it happen to be the Miami Dolphins?
It was the Miami Dolphins, and they happen to have a coach who knows exactly how to use Deebo Samuel, and they have their own potentially disgruntled wide receiver who might be on the move this offseason. Could the 49ers potentially upgrade, throw a little something extra on top of Deebo, a little seasoning on top of Deebo, send him to Miami, and bring back Tyreek Hill to complete the wide receiver unit, Croc?
I think that's something that'll work really for both teams. All right, okay, Tyreek Hill, you're a little disgruntled over there. Cool, come over here and play with Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy, and Juwan Jennings. And I think that would be he would be a difference maker. He would be a different. I saw a stat that talked about the 49ers were, I guess, like almost dead last season in separation at the point of where the catch is being made or an incompletion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And my biggest thing is, look at the type of guys that Kyle drafts. And you did get a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who is a good separator, but they're not the most explosive guys. And if you're not the most explosive, you have a defensive back like, I don't know, Eric Crocker, who is like, well, you're not going to run by me. So now I can be a little bit more comfortable with my technique and being right there at the catch point. You need someone that's going to really threaten defensive backs. And that person will be someone like Tyreek Hill.
Tony says Tyreek Hill's washed. I don't know about that in the chat, but you know who's not washed is Myles Garrett. So I hope you like Cleveland, Deebo, because that's the first place I'm offering you is as a sweetener, a pick and Deebo Samuel. Does that start to get the Cleveland Browns excited in a trade opportunity? Because I'm still on the Myles Garrett train. The more prospects we watch, the more I'm not pounding the table for any of these guys really. At pick 11, I would gladly give up the 11th pick for Myles Garrett and, maybe Deebo Samuel in there and then maybe a 3rd round pick. Would that be enough to get it done? Because I think the 11th pick is worth 2 Buffalo Bills late 1st round picks, right? If that's who you're bidding against for Myles Garrett, the 49ers 1st round pick is worth double one of the 1st round picks that most of these teams would be trying to give up. So the Browns and the Dolphins are the two initial teams that come up as potential fits. But every offseason, every draft season, we see it, Croc. Teams are like, we're trying to get our next, who's the next Deebo Samuel? Oh, this prospect, he's the next Deebo Samuel. Teams are trying to find guys like Deebo Samuel out there. And he's a couple years younger. He's been less injured than someone like Cooper Kupp. So I think he would have a little bit more value in trade than Cooper Kupp might. Even though Cooper Kupp was, ridiculous a couple years ago and won the Triple Crown, he clearly hasn't been that guy recently. So it's interesting. And again, the 49ers take a big cap hit here. So it's not the easiest trade to get done. I do think something is going to happen. And if something does happen, Croc, then is wide receiver that big of a need? Because immediately people start asking us about Ted McMillan and Luther Burden, wide receivers in the draft at pick 11. And I'm like, no, you just paid Ayuk. You just drafted a first-round wide receiver and a fourth-round wide receiver. None of those guys were even your best wide receiver last year. That was Juwan Jennings. Oh, yeah, and you got George Kittle. Wide receivers, even without Deebo, is not a big-time need. Draft a guy, but mid-round, like go find a Dontavian Wicks in the 5th round, right? That's what the 49ers should probably be doing this offseason. Like keep an eye on wide receiver, but and look, if they would have drafted Cooper DeJean, who, I think almost had himself a Super Bowl MVP type of a game out there as a rookie. If the Niners would have drafted Cooper DeJean, if they'd have drafted Johnny Newton, a defensive lineman, if they'd have drafted Jackson Powers Johnson, right, the center of the future, or a different position in round 1 last year, then I could see it. And I think Luther Burden would be in like every mock draft because I think he's absolutely a great fit for Kyle Shanahan. But a Deebo trade doesn't really change the math for me for a wide receiver need this offseason. Yeah, look for one. But unless you're worried about Brandon Ayuk's return, then you probably don't even need to go searching for a veteran at the position.
I feel like you should be very comfortable saying, man, I love the way the season ended for Ricky Pearsall. Let's build on that, right? Oh, okay, we Juwan Jennings, we have him back for another season. Awesome. Oh, by the way, Brandon Ayuk, he's coming back from injury. And even though we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, he should be ready by pretty soon. I mean, got hurt early in the season. So you got him coming back. You got a couple other really good receivers or guys that you're looking to build off of. I think the 49ers are in a great situation to just, draft a mid-round guy and see if at some point he's able to contribute. You also have Jacob Cowling. How is he going to be progressing from year 1 to year 2? I definitely don't think this is a season for the 49ers to draft a receiver, especially in the first round. Later, day 2, if there's just a guy you really like in the 3rd round, I think 3rd, 4th round should be the sweet spot for the 49ers to find a guy that can really contribute.
Late day 2, early day 3. I like that spot for a wide receiver for the 49ers. If the perfect guy falls to you at some point earlier too, I'm okay with it. You got to draft the best players when they're there. And, and maybe the 49ers didn't do that last year in the first round, which changed their plans all of a sudden this year in the first round, which is where, and I talked about this in recent episodes about drafting for need versus drafting for best player. You start to change your plan year to year. And I don't think anybody thought Ricky Pearsall was the best player last year, and he could still be a really good player for the San Francisco 49ers and did start to come on late in the year. But we had better players on our personal draft boards, guys that were showing out this year as rookies. If you drafted one of those guys, maybe a wide receiver at 11 would be in play, and maybe you'd be better off between the 2 first-round picks if that was the case. So it's a good lesson there as well. Croc, that player that we might have drafted if we were in charge of the San Francisco 49ers in the first round, Cooper DeJean. Tony in the chat, by the way, says, remember when Crocky said he wouldn't draft Cooper DeJean?
I think that's a classic example of 49er fans missing a little bit of context. I said I would not draft Cooper DeJean to be an outside cornerback. Yeah. But I loved Cooper DeJean as more of a star player, essentially your nickel, a guy that you don't have to take off of the field. He's kind of like a safety / backer kind of hybrid type guy. I thought he'd be really good and physical around the box. I thought he had definitely enough athleticism to be able to cover guys and be able to run with guys in space. And I thought he would excel at that. And I was all on board with the 49ers taking him at 31 to play that spot. And I thought we made that very clear, but maybe not clear enough.
The live show on the OT with BP, my other channel, you can go find our live draft show, and I actually posted it on Twitter tonight. Our draft board. Cooper DeJean was the number one guy on our Locked On 49ers official draft board. It was Cooper DeJean, it was Johnny Newton next, and it was Jackson Powers Johnson. Those were our top three guys when the 49ers were on the clock at 31. Yeah, and Cooper, and the 49ers just didn't value, I think, what Cooper DeJean is, and they don't utilize that as much in their defense. So I think that was probably the reason why they allowed him to slip by them and into the second round.
Maybe their plan was just, hey, we got Deommodore Lenoir, and he's a guy that has nickel versatility, and we could play him there. But if the 49ers wanted to say, hey, no, we got Deommodore Lenoir, and you know what? There's a second round guy that we potentially like. We'll see if we can get him a Ronaldo Green. I wouldn't have minded the 49ers drafting Cooper DeJean and then turn around and drafting Ronaldo Green. I don't think you can have enough good coverage guys. Cooper DeJean is definitely a guy that had a knack for making plays in college at Iowa. I thought he was somebody that was really good in space and had good feet. And he also gave you punt return versatility, which we saw him returning punts tonight in the Super Bowl. So he turned out to kind of be exactly what we identified him as. And he's I thought he played very well as a rookie. I think he made the all-rookie team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he might have ended up playing safety rather than nickel for the 49ers just because of how things went. But I think he could be an all-pro safety too. Like, he'd be an awesome fit. If you just said, hey, Croc, guess what? Cooper DeJean's coming tomorrow. He's going to play free safety at the 49ers now. Going forward.
Love it. That would have been more of the guy that I've been looking for the 49ers to draft as a safety. Instead, they've got guys like Jair Brown, who I don't think Brown is a bad football player, but I don't think the upside of him at safety was ever what Cooper DeJean's upside at safety would be.
Cooper DeJean, a member of the Philadelphia Eagles defense that absolutely destroyed Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs offense in Super Bowl 59. Our takeaways from the latest Super Bowl as we head now rapidly into the 2025 offseason next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. I got to say, kind of makes me sad, right? These ad reads were all about the NFL season. They're not anymore. We're talking about NBA now because it's off-season time. It's draft season. And by the way, draft props at FanDuel is my favorite way to bet on any kind of sports that exists. Draft props at FanDuel. But NBA action is going. Your favorite team might have just made a big trade that make the second half of the NBA season a little bit more exciting, maybe help your team push into the playoffs. There's no better place to get in on all that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, you want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today or download the app. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. It's been a while, Croc, since there's been a beating like this in the Super Bowl. And it was the can't lose Kansas City Chiefs going for the three-peat. The football gods say, no, we don't allow three-peats in the NFL. Super Bowl champions don't get to go back to back to back. The 49ers couldn't do it in their dynasty years. The Kansas City Chiefs can't do it in their dynasty years. I've never seen Patrick Mahomes look as bad and just be under this much duress as we saw from Vic Fangio's defense in the Philadelphia Eagles. And
actually, we have the last Super Bowl they lost. I think it actually looked very similar.
That's true. And I saw a stat. I mean, there's a lot of stats with the Kansas City Chiefs. First of all, their win streak in one-score games remains intact. So they still got 17 in a row, even though they got clobbered in the Super Bowl. So we're going to hear about that stat again next year. Patrick Mahomes has only lost 5 games in his career by multiple scores. 5. And 2 of those were in the Super Bowl. Now, it's pretty remarkable the run that they've been on. And the other stat that blows me away in this game, Croc, is that the Philadelphia Eagles sacked him at least 6 times. I don't know if they got any more sacks at the very end of that game. 6 sacks and 0 blitzes. They just lined up and said, "We're better than you," and dominate them start to finish. Is pretty unbelievable.
6 sacks.
Yeah, 6 sacks, 0 blitzes, and 6 sacks. They lined up 4 and just got after Patrick Mahomes in that Kansas City Chiefs offense.
That is a defensive coordinator's dream, to be able to give pressure the way. I mean, that pocket was collapsing on them quick. I'm like, okay, Andy Reid, are you guys going to run some quicks here? Are you guys going to do some things to just get the ball out of your quarterback's hands? And they just never did. And some of those concepts I saw, I knew that they probably were in trouble on, it might have been the first drive where he got sacked. They went max protection. I mean, they had a tight end in the block. They had an extra running back in the block. They had 7 men blocking. Then you have the quarterback. So that means 3 guys in route. The issue was the 3 guys in route. It was deeper concepts, and the protection on the Max Pro, it just did not hold up. And that was an issue really throughout this entire game. I don't think the concepts that they were running helped, though. I was looking for the quicks. You see the team getting after it, and just the execution, being undisciplined from the Kansas City Chiefs, that is not something that I expected to see. They don't play like that. And that was really bad today on all levels.
What really stood out to me, too, was like, okay, halftime, things are not going well. The Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, phenomenal halftime adjusters, right? Come out in the second half, it's like, okay, this is going to be a different ball game. Let's see if this thing tightens up a little bit. Sack, first drive. It was just like, nope. The Eagles didn't give them an inch. And then the Eagles, what they do when they got the ball back, is they go a little play action over the top. And look, I feel like somebody on defense for the Eagles should have gotten the MVP, but it's just so hard for individual defensive players to win MVP. And especially when your quarterback plays really well. And Jalen Hurts was pretty awesome in that game. And the dagger throw to Devontae Smith for the long touchdown, and led the team, by the way. It wasn't Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had 2.3 yards per carry. And like, that was one of the things you have to do with the Chiefs. They pulled that off somehow. And Jalen Hurts, 72 rushing yards, all-time record for rushing in a Super Bowl by a quarterback, by the way. He was the leading rusher, leading passer, 300 yards of offense, 3 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 2 through the air. Jalen Hurts, deserved the MVP. I assume he got the MVP. We went live and I didn't see what the awards ceremony was all about, but he was phenomenal in that game. But again, he was allowed to be phenomenal because of how good the Eagles were up front. And if you're taking lessons away from this game, it's an obvious lesson. And I've already talked with a lot of people about it on social media before we started recording, Croc. Fix the fronts, man. And we've been talking about it on this podcast for the 49ers. Get the meanest, baddest, butt-kickingest offensive and defensive line you can. That's why the Eagles are hoisting the Lombardi right now.
They are. I'm just complete domination from the front, made life miserable for not just Mahomes, but I mean, just the run game. It was non-existent for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they kind of had to get away from that early on. The stat at halftime was 20 yards of offense for Kansas City, 1 first down. I mean, that is just an ass kicking. And I was kind of watching it speechless. And if anybody follows me on social media, they follow me on Twitter, they know at some point a game starts getting away. One of these big games, I posted the video. You guys know what the video is. And I kind of teased that I was going to post a video. The score was 17-0, about to be 24-0. And everybody's like, nope, not yet. Like, really? Don't do it. Mahomes is over there. So that just shows the level of respect I think people across, all football fan watchers have for Patrick Mahomes. But even he couldn't overcome what that was. That was devastating. That was a poor performance. And then the Nick Bolton, when he hit Saquon Barkley on, I want to say it was 3rd down, and he just hit him late. Knocked them over, kept the drive going. They ended up getting points. I mean, just things like that. Just very uncharacteristic play from the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Eagles did a number on Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes actually had the throw of the game. late to Xavier Worthy. The game was out of hand. Like the final was 40-22. They made that look respectable. That was not a respectable football game. Like the Chiefs got absolutely clobbered, blown out, throttled. But a couple late scores helped the score look better than it actually was. But that throw was like 65 plus air yards to Xavier Worthy down the field. By the way, Worthy in this game, we talk about the rookies, the couple of early draft picks. Worthy 8 for 157 and 2 touchdowns was his final line. But that was a bomb from Patrick Mahomes at the end of that game. Obviously, way too little and way too late. But it was probably throw of the game. It was kind of ridiculous.
The tough thing for a guy like Xavier Worthy, and we saw this with Deebo Samuel his rookie year. You go to the Super Bowl, you lose, and you just think like, I will be back. And you just never know. You never know. And it's Kansas City Chiefs. You expect them to be back, but there's a lot of things you need to go your way to get to the Super Bowl. Fortunately for them, Kansas City, I think every season Mahomes has started, he's been in the conference championship game or Super Bowl. So there's still a lot of greatness there. I see a lot of people kind of taking these victory laps on Patrick Mahomes and he did it. And it's like, dude, every single year that he has started, he's been in the conference championship game or Super Bowl. So we'll see if they can get back. But for Xavier Worthy, that great experience, a guy that I got to watch in 7-on-7 when he was in high school. But getting back, it's just not guaranteed.
It was not easy. I like this one. Let's end on this comment from Castaneda in the chat. It says there's hope for the Niners. Eagles were abysmal last year, rebuilt over one offseason into a juggernaut. It's not likely, but possible. Still probably not going to happen. New defensive coordinator can make a huge difference for the 49ers, right? New special teams coordinator. You add some talent to both lines. Sprinkle in a little free agent money, potentially. Nothing big. Zach Bond wasn't some, the Eagles didn't win the offseason because Zach Bond, Saquon Barkley is on one hand, but the Niners have that guy in Christian McCaffrey. He just has to be healthy for the team next year. Absolutely, the 49ers can turn it around. A little injury luck. You got a better coaching staff. It is a good lesson. Like things can flip pretty quickly in the NFL if you have the right foundation. The Eagles had the right foundation, made the right moves, found the right coaches, and got back to where they were not that long before. And the 49ers can absolutely do that next year.
There are a lot of people that were talking kind of spicy about the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, Sirianni. And now he's hoisting Lombardi. So maybe he's a good coach after all. They had a down season last year. They got spanked in the playoffs. It got really weird. There were people saying that he should get fired. And all he did was kind of turn that around. And in a sneaky way, because people were talking about a lot of teams in the NFL, the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, obviously the Kansas City Chiefs on the other side, and the Ravens and Buffalo Bills. I feel like nobody was talking about what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing, and they silently had a great regular season. And maybe it was because, hey, nobody cares about the regular season for them. It's all about the postseason and what that looks like. And they got into the postseason, they dominated. And I mean, that was the Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks butt kicking right there, where it's just like, this is not even a game.
Yeah, 49ers, Chargers, Jerry Rice just Steve Young to Jerry Rice over and over again. Can't stop it. It's been a while, and you don't see the Kansas City Chiefs on that end of one of those either. But that's what happened. And so, congrats to the Eagles. Sirianni is one part of it. Hiring Vic Fangio. If I'm the Eagles, I'd let Sirianni go before I let Vic Fangio go. They're going to lose their offensive coordinator again, though. It's going to get a head coach job, it looks like, in Kellen Moore going to the New Orleans Saints. And they just went through that, and they had to do one and done on both offense and defensive side of the ball with their coordinators, which I'm sure didn't help their team with their down 2023 season before they came back strong this year. But Howie Roseman, the architect of the whole thing, recognizing the weaknesses of his team, adding what needed to be added to get them back here. Executive of the year, Howie Roseman. Probably nobody deserves more props than him for putting that thing together in Philadelphia. Got a couple of rings now.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and he's done a really good job in the draft, and he's put them in positions to continue to add talent. They've gone heavy with the front, drafting guys like, Jordan Davis. Then was it Carter, the other kid out of Georgia?
Yeah, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, they continue to take swings at the defensive line and try to add as much of those kind of talented guys that were productive at a high level in college, and then getting a good football player. I mean, what they did drafting the young cornerback, Cooper DeJean, and the other young cornerback,
Quinyon Mitchell.
Started, Mitchell, that started a lot for them. I mean, they've done a master class on revamping a team and a roster. And they're going to lose guys like, was it Graham, 55?
Yeah, I assume he's finally going to hang it up, and what a time to do it after winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, congrats on a phenomenal career for him. They signed, so this was actually they added Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, both coordinators this offseason. They signed Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Mekhi Becton, and played him at guard. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, first 2 rounds of the draft. They did long-term extensions with Jordan Mailata, who was a phenomenal draft pick, a rugby guy that you get for free essentially, and turn him into a franchise left tackle. I mean, that's phenomenal value. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, they redid those guys' contract. I have a feeling that AJ Brown could potentially be on the move again sometime soon because of the contracts.
It feels like there's something off with him and just the vibes. And, I saw him get into it with Sirianni. Then afterwards, they showed it was like all love, but there's been something there. The media has been weird. He's reading these books on the sideline. I don't. There's something going on there.
Wide receivers, man. I mean, full circle, right? Deebo, and we see the Ayuk and how the weirdness is in the offseason, and AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill, and and forget some of the wide receivers that have played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like you gotta be wired a certain way. Play that position at a high level in the NFL. I don't know why it is or what it is, but there's absolutely something to it. So we'll keep tabs on the Deebo Samuel situation. Could be a fury of NFL trades this offseason. Of course, it's draft season, and welcome to the 2025 offseason. And stay with us every day here on Locked On 49ers. Subscribe on YouTube or everywhere you listen to your podcasts. And Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.